afternoon, folks, and this is Maggie Rose, and this is the New Concord Hour being brought to you today on May the 10th in the year of our Lord 2016, and this is being brought to you by the Micro Effect Radio Broadcasting Network. Folks, again, this is being brought to you by the Micro Effect Radio Broadcasting Network. And at this point in time, folks, what we are going to be doing to you today is going to be bringing you our guest again, Kyle. Kyle came on with us last week, and he happens to write the Last Bastille blog. That's the Last Bastille, BASTILLE blog. You can find that at www.thelastbastille.com. And the very second line below that is rebuking oppression on every front. Now, we're going to be talking about a couple different topics today before I bring Kyle up with us. He posted this March 28th, 2016, and he posted this because it was written by a gentleman by the name of Alex Ansary. That's Ansary. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's entitled The Demonization of the Costilla County, folks, that's in Colorado, The Demonization of the Costilla County Off-Grid Homesteaders, how the San Luis Valley Just Us group was sabotaged. And I quote from Alex, "Today in Costilla County, it is nearly impossible to live on your own land with an RV with a structure of less than 600 square feet, or to live on your property without a septic that the county is recommending and suggesting. It should also be noted that this off-the-grid community was infiltrated by an individual who was a lot like the individuals who went to Burns, Oregon, and he was not known to be a Costilla County resident. Roger Marsh appeared out of nowhere, a more radical version of Ammon Bundy. Roger Marsh was removed from the situation. He came up with warrants, just like a lot of the guys in Burns, Oregon, had criminal histories. A false superior judge, a self-appointed judge by the name of Bruce Duchette, who was also involved in Burns, Oregon, has been spending, still to this day, a great deal of time in Costilla County Facebook pages, trying to convince local residents into attempting to arrest the local public officials, and that this is the way to go, which is only marginalizing off-the-gridders as extremists, which is the opposite of what we wanted. Today, the issue of Costilla County is completely unresolved, and higher courts have not stepped in." Again, this was written by Alex Ansary, and what we would like to do is also be able to read a little bit of what Kyle's introduction was. Welcome to Costilla County. The introduction was, anyone who desires to become an off-grid homesteader must first understand the government's laws about nuisance abatement and the legality of travel trailer homesteading. And it's now up for grabs, considering that it might very well be an activity that is regulated and licensed by the government. As a cautionary tale, it would be a good investment of your time to know what happened to the San Luis Valley homesteaders in Colorado during late 2015. And we're going to bring Kyle up and the story. Kyle, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Maggie. How are you doing?
Very, very good. Thank you. You know, we've had a couple conversations about this last week, and I actually went out and did some, what do you call, surfing the net. I think that's what you youngins call it. And upon doing that, I read a lot of articles, saw some pictures, and some other things that kind of explain a little bit what was going on there. But I would like you to pick up where the story begins, because it does involve, as you said, the American police state.
Sure, and just to kind of just clarify something, I transcribed that quote you read by Alex Ansary off of one of his videos. But yes, those were his words, and he was actually giving it as an afterthought, where he was trying to sum up in the best way he could what exactly happened last year. Well, This is actually a rather fascinating story for a lot of reasons, and not just for people who are interested in, well, for lack of a better term, prepping or survivalism or things of that nature, but also, even people who are just homesteading, living off grid in one sense or another, even if it's not necessarily for economic reasons, but also for real environmental reasons. Well, this is actually rather fascinating. So there were folks who were living in Castilla County, Colorado, which is in southern Colorado, and basically the code enforcement personnel basically would go around and to their houses, and then they would start issuing out tickets, and it would sometimes vary. Sometimes it would be, do you have a permit to build that? Do you have a septic? I mean, it would be different things with different people a little bit, but there was actually one Afghanistan war veteran in particular who described how the deputies would place their hands on their guns while they were on his property. And, of course, that was Hiram Jensen. There were other folks as well, but just for the sake of time, he wasn't the only one, not by a large, not the only one by far. You have to understand something, though, about this story. There were several factions at play regarding, who was doing what to whom and why. And the homesteaders in Castilla County, who cared about liberty in their own different ways, because they're all individuals, right, and individuation, and some people are going to care about it in greater or lesser extents, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the first faction that kind of started all of this was, of course, the Castilla County government. So essentially there was a meeting on September 9th of 2015 at the Castilla County Planning Commission. And I would like to read the quote by the acting chairman. He said, quote, "We are currently without a full board. We do not have a quorum. The meeting is called to order. However, we do not have a quorum to initiate any business today. I will entertain public comment only. Again, there will be no decision in use code. This will be for public comment only." And so basically, that was the end of that quote, and basically the rest of that meeting was essentially the SLV Just Us Homesteaders essentially telling the county government exactly what they think of them, which you can see the full footage of that up on Alex Dancery's YouTube channel at length. But yeah, that was the September 9th meeting. The next event was the September 15th meeting, this time not of the Planning Commission, but rather the Castilla County Board of Commissioners. And the chairman, Dolores Burns, said, quote, "Before we move forward, I guess I would just like to say that the board will not hear any public comment today in regards to any potential changes to the land use code. The Planning Commission needs to vote to make formal recommendation for revisions to the code, and the land use administrator," that's just a bureaucrat, by the way, "and the land use administrator will present recommendations to the board before we consider any changes to the code. The public will be allowed," now listen to this next part because this is rather important. "The public will be allowed time for public comment and time for any written comments during that public hearing." If the
allowed.
Yes, and she emphasized that in her voice. That's why I put it in bold. "If the board were to hear any formal recommendations or any issues today regarding the code, it is considered ex parte communication and it will not be considered. That being said, is there any public comment?" Close quote. So, yeah, and now here's the kind of crescendo, okay? So now we fast forward to the October 14th meeting, and this is back at the Planning Commission. And the chairman, and now to be clear, this is the same chairman. I still can't figure out what his name is, but that same individual at the September 9th meeting, he was chairman for the October 14th meeting, and he said, quote, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have called a meeting of the Planning and Zoning together. However, we do not have a quorum. Therefore, there will be no meeting today. The next meeting is November 18th. Again, thank you all for coming." Close quote.
Oh my gosh, it sounds to me like they're deliberately making sure there's not a quorum.
You think? Just a little bit?
Yeah, it's like, let's make a phone call and tell certain people not to show up, because that way we can do the delay tactics over and over again. And, oh my gosh, this is, I've seen this happen before, but, it's so obvious that they're being so blatant about it,
Yeah, and not only that, but if we go back to the September 15th meeting where the chairman, Dolores Burns, said, you will have a chance at the next planning commission meeting to make your comments. And then the next meeting happens, and it's like, we don't have a quorum, leave.
Yep. Yeah, I saw this happen when I sat on a Blue Ribbon task force in Contra Costa County back in the 1990s. I was supposed to be addressing children being abused by the bureaucrats, both in the foster care system and also in the adoptive system. And what they did is they kept doing the same sort of tactics to make sure the parents of the children that were taken away, or the parents that were the foster parents, or even the parents that wanted to adopt, would never have a chance to be able to speak up and have their 3 to 5 minutes to talk. They did the same sort of thing there. Things haven't changed, have they, in 17 years?
No, I guess not. And I guess I should have said this earlier, but if people want to look at my article and hopefully follow along, the article is located at tinyurl.com/SLVJustUs. One more time, tinyurl.com/SLVJustUs. Okay, so the next faction, now you have to keep in mind, in terms of the sequence of events, I had to divvy it up by faction because a lot of the actual chronological events were overlapping quite a bit, and if people follow along in the article, they'll see that. So basically there was more things that the county government was doing, but just for the sake of time, unfortunately, I can't mention that for now, but people can look at it in the article. Getting on to the next faction, Maggie, was some of the locals in the town of San Luis. Oh, goodness. On this one, I'm just going to read word for word what I was able to transcribe from the footage that has been made available. And there was this one farmer. Well, actually, I'm just going to read the quote, and you can kind of get an idea for what this guy's all about. Now, you have to keep in mind the context of this is that this was right after the County Board of Commissioners September 15th meeting, so the same one where Dolores Burns said, you will have a chance at the next Planning Commission meeting. Okay? It was that same day. It was right after that meeting had ended. And one of the locals went up to one of the homesteaders. His name was Akeem, and you must keep in mind, and I hate to bring this up, but unfortunately it is very relevant, the man has darker skin color than I do.
All right.
So Akeem, and this is what Akeem was told from one of the locals who was there. The local said, quote, people need to know that this is a Mexican land grant and has a very deep history. Half of the people here are Native Americans, and the other half are Mexican Americans, with a dash, of course. And we have a very strong relationship to the land and water. I am a farmer. I have 181 acres that I irrigate off the oldest ditch in Colorado. We don't want people stealing water out of our ditch. That's what your neighbors are doing. That's what they're doing. Now, it's up to you all moving here to get control of whomever your new community is part of, because you're violating the law. If you're going to move to a place, you really need to have a sense of place, and you need to respect the place. And if you don't, you're going to have this kind of trouble. Instead of people getting along and figuring out how to solve problems, you're going to have animosity and conflict, and you're also going to have white people trying to bring their supremacy here, and it ain't going to work. If you're black and you're still acting black, that ain't going to work here either, brother. You got to need to know who you're with. Black lives matter, Chicano lives matter too. I got a right to raise my voice against you because I'm indigenous from here, and you're not. Close quote. Wow,
that sounds like a bigot if I ever heard one.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, and then of course you go on to write. You said not only was there an appeal to white devil imagery here, but also racial supremacy against Akeem, who is racially black.
And one of the homesteaders, yeah. That's just kooky Orwellian stuff. Now, the next quote I do want to get to, and keep in mind, this is something this is right from Alex Ansari's footage, and this was one of the women who were, again, same event. This was right after the September 15th meeting of the County Board of Commissioners. This was basically in the street, more or less. And this woman has not been identified as far as I'm aware of, but she said more or less the following, quote, you are, and she's addressing this to Alex Ansari, quote, you are a human being. All your friends you are advocating for are human beings. They deserve to be treated as human beings, so live as human beings, not as pigs. You deserve proper septic, running water, like every other American in the United States, and you, sir, whether you are from Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, Iraq, wherever, from any other country, no disrespect. And then there was a little bit of an interruption in the audio, but that's more or less the close quote. So notice the don't live as pigs. If you don't have septic, you're a horrible person. That's kind of implied with what her comments were, at least if I'm understanding her right.
So therefore, if somebody wants to go out and they're in a place in Alaska, let's say, where you're able to homestead, and it takes time and money to be able to do certain things, and that means that you don't have the right to dig a hole and do your personal business in that hole and cover it up, because then you're called a pig. And if you happen to be of darker skin than other people, then they refer you even more so as less than human. And what I'm wondering is, who are these people to think that they have a right, if somebody is on their own land, whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 25 acres or more, who has the right to come out there and tell these people how to build their septic or not build their septic, or maybe they want to live off the grid. They don't want electricity. A lot of the Amish people don't have electricity. So is this lady going to come along and go to Pennsylvania or Kentucky and tell these Amish people you're living as pigs because you don't have electricity? Come on.
Yeah, and just for the sake of time, I really do need to get on. But there was actually more of it, and it's in the article. Getting on to the next faction was something called Operation Patriot Rally Point. Now, please understand something. The SLV Just Us Homesteaders were besieged on at least 2 fronts, right? So far we've got the county government, which is what started all this stuff, and then, of course, you had the literal documented bigotry by the locals in San Luis.
Right.
And now you have this third faction called Operation Patriot Rally Point. Now this, I don't even want to call it an organization, but let's just say this farce, because that's what it was originally founded by Roger Marsh back in 2013, and it was this failed project of like 3 guys in in costumed attire, like collecting petitions and delivering it through, in an RV or something to like DC. Anyway, it failed, and the RV basically got it burned up, quite literally. And so then when you fast forward to about 2.5 years following the burning of the RV, Roger Marsh shows up on October 6th. This was a later meeting of the Castilla County. So you have the one on September 15th, that's where Dolores Burns said the ex parte communication thing. Then I believe the next one after that was what, and that's when Roger Marsh shows up completely out of the blue and says, I'm here to help all y'all, pretty much with whatever and whatnot. Now, you have to keep in mind, Roger Marsh claimed that he had served 18 years in the U.S. Army and that he was a former Army Ranger. He went on to invoke the events of Bundy Ranch, and eventually a decision was made to have a meeting, there was kind of an impromptu meeting. Again, it's according to Alex Ansry's footage.
Right. Now, one of the things you wanted me to bring up, you're fading in and out a little bit. You wanted me to bring up that there is a situation going on in Texas right now, which might take away your audio. Is that true?
Yeah, it's just, according to NOAA, there is it's a severe thunderstorm watch. So, yes, if anything of a technical nature happens, I don't want anybody to be overly concerned. It's just bad weather here. But as far as I'm looking outside my window, skies are clear. So I don't know if the government meteorologists are just wrong on this one. But
right. Your voice has been fading in and out. Sometimes something's been cutting off some of your words. That's why I wanted to ask.
Okay. I don't know what I can do about that necessarily.
Okay. So I didn't mean to make you lose your train of thought, but I forgot that you wanted me to bring that up at the beginning of the show.
Well, thank you. Okay, so we've got. Okay, yeah. So there was a meeting at the Fort Garland Community Center, and basically Marsh. Now, okay, this is very important. Okay, this is where the fraud comes in. Roger Marsh claimed that there was a judge. Everybody listening, this is. Okay? Because this actually set the stage for a later article, which I won't have time to get to right now for today. He said there was a judge who was going to bring U.S. Marshals into Castilla County to help the SLV homesteaders defend themselves against the government. Okay, did everybody get that? A judge was allegedly supposed to bring in U.S. Marshals to help defend the SLV homesteaders against the Castilla County government. Okay, did everybody get that? That was the claim.
Yeah.
And also near the end of that meeting, Marsh whipped out a cell phone in order to put the alleged judge on speakerphone, and they were going to schedule another meeting. Now, fast forward to October 16th, and this is absolutely critical. If you do not understand this, none of the rest of it's going to make any sense. October 16th was the day of Meet the Judge. That was the name of the event. It was near Lobato Bridge. Alex Ansary predicted in a video earlier that day that was uploaded that more likely than not it was going to be a setup, but he was going to go anyway and document it because he's a citizen journalist like the real kind. And at that meeting, the Meet the Judge event, Marsh ordered that there will be no videotaping. Okay, now remember, the first, impromptu meeting on October 6th, that was filmed. Roger Marsh did not have a problem with that. There was the Fort Garland meeting that was 2 days later on October 8th. Again, Marsh was filmed the entire time. Nobody had a problem. October 16th, apparently there's a problem. And remember, the judge, the alleged judge in question, was supposed to be there. And according to eyewitnesses who were there, he was there. And I'll get to who he was in a moment. So Roger Marsh ordered there will be no videotaping. And Ansary was able to get a little bit of footage, but mostly only audio out. Thankfully, he was able to get that out. God bless him. And there's more detail in the article, but suffice it to say, that's when SLV Just Us was broken up. Now, this is actually rather important because 4 days later, Roger Marsh was arrested without incident at the Grizzly Inn in Alamosa by Colorado State Patrol and Alamosa Police Department officers on 3 outstanding warrants from a whole bunch of different places for a whole bunch of different things I list in the article. And this is very important. John Spoonius, Robin Rutan, and Hiram Jensen are now on the record specifically rebuking OPRP, that's Operation Patriot Rally Point.
Right.
Especially given that Chloe Everhart, and that's Hiram Jensen's wife, Chloe Everhart found that the alleged Judge Bruce Doucette, everybody get that, Bruce Doucette was his name. Don't forget that. The alleged Judge Bruce Doucette was simply a member of a sovereign citizen group and therefore had no legal credentials at all. Everybody get that?
Right.
Okay, this was a fraud from start to finish. I don't care who you are. You don't go in and say, I am a judge, I'm bringing U.S. Marshals to help the homesteaders defend themselves from the Castilla County government. You don't lie like that, Bruce Doucette. I'm calling you out.
Right. In fact, I think I recall, wasn't Bruce Doucette also involved with the Harney County? And he kept telling people in Nevada and Oregon that he was bringing U.S. Marshals to come to Harney County to do the same thing.
And notice that what happened in Castilla County was in October of last year. So this would be before January of 2016 when the events of Harney, the events of Harney County and Burns more specifically went down. And there is a quote I would like to read with what time's remaining of what Robin Rutan, one of the homesteaders, said. Now, this isn't in the article. I put this quote up later because a colleague of mine wanted to kind of point this out.
Okay.
But she said...
Yeah, let's do this. We're going to a station break right now. I hear the music. Why don't we do this quote when we come back? How's that, Kyle?
That's fine.
Okay, folks, this is Maggie Rose. This is Kyle, our special guest today. We are going to go to a station break here on the Micro Effect Radio Broadcasting Network. Do not turn that dial. We will be right back with you. Hello, folks. This is Maggie Rose again. Today is May the 10th, and we're here on the Micro Effect Radio Broadcast, the Concord Hour. And we have Kyle as our special guest on again today. He's very popular with my listeners. And Kyle, you were getting ready when we went to station break to give us a quote.
Let's see. Now, just to be clear, the quote is not in the article. I just put it up as a separate blog post later because a colleague of mine wanted to kind of see that just word for word. And here's what it is. Now, keep in mind, this is by Robin Rutan. She is one of the homesteaders, or at least was one of the homesteaders in Castilla County. And she said the following pretty much in the immediate aftermath of the Meet the Judge event on October 16th of 2015, quote, "A lot of those people are going to get up and leave, and several did already, ellipses. He's not a judge, he's a jackass. They want a Bundy Ranch, they want violence, they want people killed for publicity. And then they'll go on to the next issue and do that again," close quote.
Go ahead.
That's what Robin Rutan said to Alex Ansary, and he documented it.
Now, what's interesting here that I'm understanding is that Chloe Everhart, who is the wife of Mr. Jensen, and I quote, you said, found that the alleged judge, Bruce Duchette, was simply a member of a sovereign citizen group and therefore had no legal credentials at all. Now, I have met another person also who calls himself a judge, a really nice guy. I've read some wonderful articles from Anna up in Alaska, but none of them have been to law school. They believe as sovereign citizens they should not have a lawyer's license to practice law. But the fact is, when I've even gone and spoken to people like Carol Bundy and stuff, they say that they understand the importance of common law and that we should get out of statutory law and get back into common law. But because the deck is so badly stacked against us, that we actually need to fight them within their own statutory, their own admiralty, their own admin laws. So what you're saying here is that this Bruce Duchette got up and was actually trying to get people to follow him by calling himself a judge, which supposedly gave him some sort of credibility, which is no different than what Steve Grasky is doing in Harney County. He's not a real judge either. He took over that seat when the judge that was actually there retired. So what do you do about people like Bruce Duchette or some of these other self-proclaimed judges when they're trying to gather people to follow them based on saying, I'm a judge, you have to listen to me?
To be fair, that is getting into a bit of a different subject. There was a follow-up article I did write that people can find at tinyurl.com/fake-judges, and it is entitled Fake Judges, How and Why Sovereign Citizens Are Undermining Patriot Groups. And the response that I've gotten from that article has been rather astounding, to say the least. In fact, I have it on good authority that not just the original version on the blog, but also the mirrored copies on multiple alternative media websites is now exceeding 1,600 hits, and that's the conservative number as of 2 days ago.
Yeah, so you wrote in here about the Oregonian and Bruce Duchette. You wrote in here about Roger Marsh, and so what is happening with this whole situation right now?
Well, as far as Castilla County goes, it's much like what Ansary said. It's unresolved, and it's basically now in a complete news blackout. That's pretty much what's happened. That's pretty much what's happened as far as Castilla County goes, and I really didn't go too much beyond that. Now, there is a different section of my article about Castilla County. Again, that's tinyurl.com/SLVJustUs, where I do get into some of the legalities of what was being claimed by the government, and also the concept of nuisance abatement, which, much like civil asset forfeiture, is something that should be discussed at another time. But for right now, suffice it to say, the government basically, whenever any American government decides to enforce nuisance abatement, and Castilla County is not the first time this happened. It's also occurred to some of the desert rats in California back in 2014, where they say that if your property looks trashy, they reserve the right to basically go and harass you, issue you citations, basically a lot of municipal ordinances or county ordinances or violations thereof and so forth. And I know a lot of people are concerned about public land use issues. What I'm more concerned about is private property land use issues, especially if people are going homeless over it, which is something that has not been addressed in any real significant way other than Alex Ansary, thankfully, getting the word out about this, at least originally. And then I came by later and tried to write it down.
So you're saying that, and would it be safe to say that you believe, this is your opinion and maybe the opinion of others, that because of Roger Marsh and because of Bruce Duchette and others, that many people in this valley became homeless because of their interference with what was going on, and they're stirring up people in the county?
Is that Hiram Jensen and Chloe Everhart have left Castilla County. There are others that basically have left town, but I haven't had a chance to confirm really any of that. The main problem is that the sovereign citizens or American state nationals or whatever that these adherents of the so-called corporate United States myth are claiming and doing is that they're busting up patriot groups, or like what Bruce just said did later in Harney County, he basically there was some finagling that was done in terms of well, actually, more specifically, that's getting a little bit more to the fake judge issue, but like what Gary Darby did with Dwayne Schrock and Chris Briles and tricking them into signing a document that did absolutely nothing.
Okay,
nothing positive anyway.
Now, you had another topic you wanted to go into. You were talking about this was under attack. It's under the Liberty under attack, and you were talking about the voter. You wanted to bring that up today.
Yes, at least in passing. I think this was something that was brought up at least a while ago as well as last Thursday. You know, people really, how do I say this? People really are concerned, and also with election year, right?
Right.
And right now, I think, much like I said last Thursday, people are really concerned that the choices they're facing are between a fascist and a socialist. You know, more specifically, some combination of either Sanders and or Clinton versus probably, most likely than not, the Donald, right, who's basically the biggest joke in the room, but unfortunately, people are taking him seriously. Well, you do have another option. Folks have another option. They don't have to vote at all. If they don't want to, they do not have to consent to being governed, at least to the extent the system will allow them to. And, you know, I know there are a lot of more anarchistic arguments against voting, and those arguments have been made, whether justified or not. What I would like to get into is a legal remedy that actually I was able to prove, and others have emulated since my efforts in doing. And it's called different things in different places, but probably the simplest way of putting it is cancellation of voter registration. Now, I did write an article about this, which is located at tinyurl.com/unregistervoter, tinyurl.com/unregistervoter. And basically, I was able to discover that, there's actually a legal basis for this, and I would like to get into this with whatever time we have remaining. So, according to, now I'm only going to talk about Texas, because that's what I'm certain of, that's what I did. According to the Texas Election Code, Section 16.0331 and 16.036, it seems to be the basis for, it's very brief, I'll read you exactly what the law says, the government's laws anyway. Section 16.0331 says, a voter desiring to cancel the voter's registration must submit to the registrar a written signed request for the cancellation. A request may not be submitted by an agent, they mean third party. The registrar shall cancel a voter's registration immediately on receipt of a request under subsection A. Subsection A is the part I had last time. And then C is the registrar shall retain the request on file with the voter's registration application. Okay, now we get to 16.036. Immediately after, but not later than the 30th day after the date a voter's registration is canceled under Section 16.03183, 16.033, 16.0331, that's more me, or 16.0332, the registrar shall deliver written notice of the cancellation to the voter. The notice shall be delivered by mail to the mailing address on the voter's registration application and to any new address known to the registrar. The notice must include the date of cancellation, the reason of cancellation, and a brief explanation of the voter's right to challenge the cancellation and to appeal the registrar's decision. Okay, close, more or less, close quote. So basically, that's what the law, quote unquote, that's what the law says, the Texas Election Code. So when I was looking at that, I thought, you know, this is rather interesting. So I decided to kind of give it a try, and I believe that article, if I remember correctly, came out in April of 2013, and it was later that month. I think it was on the 10th. I got the I got a document back, which was called Notice of Cancellation, and that document is available on both my website as well as on libertyunderattack.com as well, where it says Notice of Cancellation, dear voter. Notice is hereby given that your voter registration has been canceled in name of county on April 10th of 2013. Reason for receipt of request to cancel voter registration. The rest of the form letter basically goes on to say that if I want to challenge the cancellation, here's what I would need to do. And otherwise, the voter registrar ends more or less by saying, if you should have any questions regarding this cancellation, please contact us. And there you go. It was a one-page document. And so I had a success. A legal remedy actually worked. I guess you could say, Maggie, I am an ex-voter. And I proved it in Texas. And so, yeah, I can't vote. So it's not just I don't want to vote or I think voting is bad or anything. I can't vote. And I did that voluntarily.
Okay, well, what happens, though, Kyle, when let's say there's a really important bond issue or some kind of a bond or bill that's coming through or somebody that's in your county that you really like as a county commissioner potential, and now you don't vote at all, what's the old saying go? If you don't like what's going on and you don't, at least take the chance to vote, which is a privilege to vote, then basically you can't complain about what's going on if you're not willing to vote.
If you do vote, you can't complain is actually the correct way of looking at it, mainly because if you go into the ballot box or the booth or what have you, and you pull a lever, push a button, scratch nonsense on a piece of paper, you are agreeing to the contest itself. And then whatever the results are whatever the results are. You are agreeing to it. You are saying, yes, I like this government. I consent to its governance. Please, massa, may I have some more? When they tell you to jump, you ask how high. You are saying this is all wonderful. I totally don't have a problem with this government. I think it's wonderful, all the civil asset forfeiture and the democide by the police and the central banking and, pick a grievance, the dragnet wiretapping by the NSA. Again, like I said, pick a grievance. I agree. I like it all. I like tyranny. When you vote, you are agreeing to this and you like it. All of it. You like Bush. You like Obama. You like Donald Trump. You like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, all the rest of these tyrants.
So basically what you're saying is that when we go to the ballot box and we vote or we mail in our vote like they do in some states, I don't know if Washington is one of them, I know Oregon is one, that basically you're saying that however the final chips may fall, whether it's something that's proper or not, you're saying that democracy and the difference between democracy and the republic, that basically in voting it's mobocracy that rules. So it's mobocracy that is ruling. The mob is the greater, whether they're the right ones or not. You're saying that by voting you are actually consenting to accept whatever crap is put in the White House.
And that's exactly why Hans Hermann Hoppe has called democracy is the god that failed. And that's exactly what that's about. Now, I don't want to get too much into, with the time left remaining, into more the anti-voting arguments, but as far as the legal remedy goes, it worked. And if folks want to learn more about this, they should go to tinyurl.com/cancelvoter. And yes, this is different from the other one. One more time, tinyurl.com/cancelvoter. Now, that'll take you to the libertyunderattack.com webpage on canceling your voter registration. Now, Shane Radliff actually went beyond what I did, and he compiled the state laws. I think he got about 39 states of the union, all of their laws that he could find. There's about 11 that he couldn't, but 39 he was able to find the legal citations for canceling voter registration. And then, of course, walking the walk, not just talking the talk, he replicated canceling his voter registration in the, I guess you could say, the communist state of Illinois. And he did that on, I think it was actually a year ago this month. So he, I guess you could say he's an ex-voter too. And I think a few months after that, again, I think this was last September, one of Shane's listeners emulated his example, and she canceled her voter registration. I believe it was in Indiana. So there's at least 3 on record. And, if people want to, express their discontent with the system and not just not vote, but really give up on voting, really giving up on the ballot box and trying to, I guess you could say, strategic withdrawal, not consenting to this tyranny. And
Okay, and I was going to say something about that real quickly. When I was up there visiting and listening to the former Sheriff Matt talk, the next day, another proclaimed judge, a person that I met, a really nice guy on a personal level, his name is Gary Darby. Well, he was giving a class in the Constitution, and there was a gentleman that was were in on the class, and when it was all over, the gentleman walked up to Gary, and Gary said, I don't believe in voting, and I don't vote. And, of course, this guy came totally unglued, running for governor of Oregon, and he says, I'm up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm on the campaign trail. I'm trying to do things that can make a difference in the state of Oregon. And he says, and this guy here doesn't even believe in voting. So he came completely unglued because he believed that if there were more and more people like that did not believe in voting, then people like himself could not run and get actually the position of governor and then try to make some positive changes to the state. So how would you answer that?
Well, it's very simple. First of all, if anybody's going to try working within the system, the only thing that might maybe theoretically have a chance at doing so would really be jury nullification. But, of course, the sovereign citizens don't want to talk about jury nullification because, well, they don't want to talk about anything that actually has any basis in the law. So let me put it this way, Maggie. These faux common law advocates, whether they label themselves let's see, in Canada and Britain, they usually call themselves free men on the land with, like, dashes in between. Sovereign citizens are actually, one of them actually commented on or actually was really rebuking, or I should say rebutting, my fake judges article. And American State National apparently is another version of the corporate United States myth, I guess. Here's the problem. These guys have not borne their burden of proof. I have read their literature. I have read multiple of their books, whether it's Robert Menard or Mary Elizabeth Croft or pick somebody, J.M. Godsend, and
Anna von Reitz.
Well, in any case, the point is that I've read multiple. I wrote a white paper about 2 years or so ago called "Only on Paper: The Pathetic Story of Commercial Redemption, Freemen on the Land, Sovereign Citizens, Lawful Rebellion, and Community Immunity." And people can find that at tinyurl.com/onlyonpaper. tinyurl.com/onlyonpaper. And that was 2 years ago. And apparently, when I listed those questions toward the end of the article about, hey, if I'm wrong about the sovereign citizen ideology, please feel free to answer these questions I have at the end. Things like, what evidence is there that the birth certificate is a financial security? Can you, show me some paperwork? Because I'd like to see it, whether it's a court ruling or not just some made-up fluff because you think it sounds nice, but some real evidence. But apparently they won't do that. They won't satisfy Hitchens' razor by bearing their burden of proof. They won't do it. They'd rather lie, whether wittingly or unwittingly, to people about the corporate United States myth. And, they make this assumption that if they just do foolish things that don't work, like accept it for value or the filing lien thing, or actually probably my favorite version was the issuing bills to the cops. Like, I issue you a bill because you beat me up, and, you must pay, the $1,000 or whatever the hell it is. And then, of course, those quote-unquote bills are never paid. Sometimes they're called consumer purchases. These things don't work. And I documented at length in the Only on Paper article why that is, more so than I have time to get into here. But here's what I want to kind of have people take away from this. I think the audience is smart enough to figure out who is serious about liberty and who is simply playing Dungeons and Dragons by talking tough, but not actually walking the walk, not to mix metaphors. So here's what I would say to the sovereign citizens or American state nationals or whatever version they're going by this week. If you guys want to be taken seriously, then what I would suggest is that you upload to the internet your court documents and preferably trial footage if you can get a camera in there, and emulate what Ian Bernard did in Keene, New Hampshire over the past 5+ years with his various legal entanglements, where he was very transparent about both his successes and his failures. And, if people go to the Free Keene website, you can and also their YouTube channel, you can see how Ian Bernard did it. So the sovereign citizens have zero excuses. And if they're not interested in being transparent about their activities, Maggie, it I think they're disingenuous activists, quite frankly. And I wrote a separate article by that name too. Disingenuous activists, why leaderless resistance is preferable to formal organizations. And obviously all of those are on the lastbestdeal.com website. My blog.
And you have one also called The American State National Anna von Reitz Claims She's Not a Fake Judge. Would you give out that webpage again, the End of Terror, War, Liberty Under Attack one more time, and also your blogging site before we go off air?
Sure. My blog is located at thelastbestdeal.com. Bastille is spelled B-A-S-T-I-L-L-E. Thelastbestdeal.com. Shane Radliff's website, where he mirrors a lot of my work, is at libertyunderattack.com. And again, Maggie, thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you very much, Kyle. I'd like to be able to have you back again. Folks, that was Kyle. He just gave his website. You want to give him one more time, please, Kyle?
Sure. The Last Bastille, B-A-S-T-I-L-L-E, thelastbastille.com.
Okay, and then it's Liberty Under Attack, and that is www.libertyunderattack.com. And on there we can find some of your articles and your entire thing on voter cancellation, legal information, and proof that the cancellation works. Right, Kyle?
Yes, it's on both sites, but I would say the better one's on libertyunderattack.com.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Folks, that was Kyle from Texas. This is Maggie Rose in the New Concord Hour, being brought to you proudly by the Microfact Radio Broadcasting Network. And we might just have Kyle back another date, and maybe with some of the people that we've mentioned in today's show. So again, folks, this is Maggie Rose. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same station. God bless and good night.